I'm turned on up here, so you can hear me better. I don't know. Probably you're hearing me because you're close to me. Last week we talked a little bit about digital media and the things we watched. I had class with the teens on Wednesday night. We talked a little bit about it. I never know who I'm going to have on Wednesday night class. It can vary. I had a full house on Wednesday night. Kathy actually brought Levi, so I had little Levi in there, Lila. So it went from that all the way up to the teens. But thankfully, talking about TV is a conversation that doesn't matter how old you are, we can all have it together. So it was great to kind of hear the little ones talk and the older ones talk about TV. I was going to share a little bit about what came up. I took a picture of the board on Wednesday night of some of the things that we threw out. I started out just like with this class. I asked, what's the good and what's the bad, right? So some very similar things. What's the good? Well, it's entertainment. So we're going there to relax or to be entertained. We can learn things. You can use it. Gunner, I don't know if you ever talked to Gunner, but he loves history. He watches a lot of History Channel and things on there. And you can tell it because he knows his history. Also, it broadens our perspectives. Sometimes we can learn things that we didn't know before. We can watch the news. Someone said we can learn new words. So I don't know if they're watching Spanish or something on TV. You get to know what's going on, and sometimes you can stay more socially relevant. So if people are talking about things that are going on in the world, you know what's going on. So the bad, the first thing that, I said, what's the bad? Well, I said, what exposes you to bad things was the first thing that they said. It said, absolutely, you can be exposed to bad things. This one I wasn't aware of, but one of the younger ones said, if you watch too much TV, you can go blind. So I was like, I didn't know that. So I thought I would share that with you. Yes. Too much TV. I better watch it. I'm halfway there. So they talked about bad things on TV. I said there's scary things. You can watch horror shows, and that's scary. It can be addictive. It can be time-consuming. It's not interactive. It can influence our decisions. So there's a good one, right? It can make us more self-conscious about how we look or who we are. It's certainly true, right? You see those things about how you're supposed to look and so forth. It can cause anxiety, depression. And they talked about how it can make you want to buy things. So they were getting at the advertising part of it, right? So they're picking up on that. And then they talked a little bit about, we talked about shows that we watch. So there's some cartoons in there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I think probably okay, but I'm not too familiar with that. And then there's a few others, some documentaries. Duck Dynasty came up. They talked about watching Duck Dynasty. Some things that they were watching. So it was a good class. We had a good conversation. It was a little chaotic, I will admit, but we got some good talk in during the class. Today I wanted to switch gears just a little bit and talk about social media. So if I could have a raise of hands, who uses social media? So we're talking about Facebook. So raise your hands if you use it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay. Did I? 17? Did he not raise his hand? He did not raise his hand because he was mine. He's trying to get around it that way. I understand. 17 out, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. 17 out of 33. So half, pretty much half. I was curious. I didn't know where everyone would fall. And today we're talking about social media. I'm certainly not saying that everyone should be on social media. I have friends that have kind of banned social media. They don't want to be on Facebook. They don't want to see it, and that's absolutely fine. We all have to make that decision for us and what social media we're on. I probably don't know a fraction of the social media apps that are out there. I kind of use Facebook. That's the big one. The kids always remind me Facebook is for old people. So apparently I'm where I'm supposed to be. They use Instagram. That's more the one they use. I was asked them, should the church have an Instagram account? And they're like, yes, if you want to reach young people, you should have an Instagram account. So I said, well, maybe I'll look into it. But outside of that, I don't use a lot of these other ones. You know, there's Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, Pinterest. We're not going to go into the details of which one's better and which one's worse so much. But I wanted to touch on a couple things to start us off, talking about social media, and then I wanted to hear from you a little bit. First thing, there's a couple key thoughts I wanted to start out on. First of all, when we look at Matthew 28, it talks about the Great Commission, right? We are to go. So go can be go a lot of places, right? So it can be where you go physically, but it can also be where you go virtually. So if you are out there and you are using social media, I want you to continue to think about this is another opportunity to go, right? So you can be out there, what you're posting, what you're saying, what you're typing. This is an opportunity to influence people and to be out there on a mission, right? So social media falls into the go part of our lives governed by the Great Commission. We're all missionaries all the time. Maybe we're not actually physically out as a missionary, but we have that mission to be out there touching people. And this is another avenue to do it. And with social media, you're going to touch a lot more people, or at least I will, virtually, than probably I do physically sometimes, right? I just don't have that big of a group of people that I may interact with physically, like at a job or something like that. So the first thought is, remember, this is not something separate. This is part of who we interact with. Second, social media is communication, right? You can't look up in the Bible for a verse about what to do with social media, but the Bible has a lot to say about how we communicate, and social media is communication. So there's actually a lot in the Bible about social media is what I would say, because it's about communication. You know, I have James chapter 3 up there. With the tongue we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse people who are made in God's likeness. Blessing and cursing come out of the same mouth. My brothers and sisters, these things should not be this way, right? So no matter, you can apply this to your life. No matter where you are, you're to act consistent, right? You're Christians no matter where. I'm not different Larry at work, different Larry around my kids, different Larry at church. I should be consistent across the board. Same thing with how I'm behaving or interacting on the internet, right? We hope that I'm being consistent there, being a Christian there as well. So we shouldn't be blessings and being happy and being joyful and being encouraging one place and somewhere else being completely different, right? So you had to listen to me for a couple minutes. But when we talk about social media and communicating as a Christian on social media, what are some roles you think, or what are some things that you keep in mind when you're using Facebook or any of those other types of things that are out there? Or maybe things that you tell your kids. Yes. It is always there. You even think deleting it, I mean, maybe there's some way it won't be seen, but it's still, there's probably a record of it somewhere, right? Yeah. Will stay there forever. This is especially important for kids, right? Because you got to think, and they can have a hard time understanding this. Is like as you grow older, you know, you have this stuff that's still there from things that you posted or did. You know, there's a legacy there, right? And that's hard sometimes for them to think about. I think, right? It sticks with you, or it can be. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know, we didn't have, you know, I think 20 years ago we may not have had social media, but you might send an anonymous letter. You know, people are far more willing to say something in an anonymous letter than they are when they put their name at the bottom of it. Well, social media, all of a sudden you're anonymous in a way because these people don't know who you are, right? So, other thoughts? Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. Facebook rage, right? Right. Somebody says something and you gotta put your, people just pile on. Yeah. Mhm. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I like it. Not private at all. Yeah, I know. I guess Jeff is teaching the teens, but he's talked about before, in hiring, sometimes they'll actually go and look at your social media and learn about you, right? So they can learn what type of, life you live, try to get an idea about your dependability, all sorts of things, and they can go look at your social media for that. I think this was probably a few years ago, I had a class on this, but there are these stories of, like, I guess there's a lady who was just hired, young lady, and she's on her social media talking about how boring work was, and the boss came out and apparently was on her friend list, and he came out and he says, well, if it's so boring, I think this is your last day, and actually fired her for it. So there you go. Watch what you're posting. Think a little bit. So other thoughts? You can, yeah. Trying to sell you stuff. You can maybe, and this is with emails and stuff too, they try to get some of your information, right? So. Yep. People are watching it to see if you're going on vacations, right? When's a good time to go to your house and break in? Well, they're my friends, Stacy. They're my friends. I have 200 friends. Right, right. Yeah, very true. False sense of, I guess it's a false sense of friendship in a way. Is that a good way to say it? Maybe like I don't. Yeah, people. Yeah, yeah. I, Absolutely. I think that's very true. You see, because I usually don't take the picture when all my kids' hair's messed up and they're fighting with one another. That's not when I pull out the camera. But when I get that one, it's probably that 1 second, right? When everybody's smiling and things are going great for everyone across the board, then that gets posted to Facebook. And that's not, right? That's not the way it is. Right, yes. I'm the only one not in the vacation in the Caribbean, Everybody else seems to be on vacation. Yes. Yeah. Uh, yeah, so gives some people an opportunity to be sneaky. Yes. Doing things that no one else knows about because you're trying to do it virtually. So. I had to, I had, sorry, I tell stories about when I was in kindergarten, I had to tell my daughter one time, she's like, did you ever have boyfriends or girlfriends? I said, when I was in kindergarten, I had 9 girlfriends. So, I don't know, yeah. So we had no idea what that meant, but we were like, you want to be a girlfriend? Yeah. So, anyways, other ideas. What about positive? Like I said, it's always easy to think about the negative, which is true because it's there. What about the positive of social media? There are none? Bill says there are none. Right. I think it's like everything. So since she brought it up, do those? Yeah. I know a lot of times in the bulletin you mention things from a Bible study group. Is that something that you're usually in, or you see it somewhere, or how? Right. Yeah. Hazing. Yeah. Okay. Well, neat. So you can use it for positive. You can be parts of good groups, positive groups, Bible studies with people. Like I said, you can reach out. You can touch people that you never thought you could interact with, right? So I'm sure there are people in these groups that are who knows where, outside the United States, maybe. I don't know. Other. Yep, Clark. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Seems central. Yeah. 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 Well, it's interesting. I mean, you said a couple of things like don't assume loudest voice is representative, which is true not only in social media but in the news or anywhere you go. Sometimes the loudest voice is the one that's heard, and it's not accurate. But it did give you a little bit of insight into maybe something that people don't understand, right? Even other Christians. Uh, Other things positive. I know last week, I'm going to remember, James, you talked about social media being helpful and that you can stay in touch with people. So your family that you maybe never see. My mom doesn't post anything on social media. I think the only reason she has it is so she can see my kids. So she gets on there and she sees the videos and the pictures, which my wife posts, because me and my wife use social media differently. Like, if you want to know what's going on in my life, you should actually be my wife's friend. For me, I don't post that much, other than for the church. So that's just how I use it. So we all use it differently, probably. So. Right. So it does help keep in touch. Oh yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. You better have a little knowledge before you listen to the guy on the other end. Yeah. Yeah. Oh wow. Okay. That's interesting. So she was willing to. I just repeat it sometimes so everybody can hear. Like you said, you had a hard time getting your mom to go to group therapy, something that she needed, but then she was willing to do it. She saw the group on Facebook, did Zoom meetings, and was able to get something that she wasn't open to before. Okay. Any other thoughts? Yep. Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think Ken mentioned that before class even started. You were saying about there's a neighborhood group, and sometimes that can be helpful. But you're right. Then it's also an opportunity to complain. My wife, she's the president of the homeowners association in our neighborhood, which is very small. but she has somebody who manages a Facebook site to watch out for stuff like that. If somebody makes a comment about somebody and then people start to pile on, she just deletes it. You know, we're going to cut that off and not let that happen. It's not what it's for. Okay, so you're going to hear, I'm going to go through some of the things I'm going to talk about with the teens. I'm sure I'll get some good ideas from them too. And you're going to see some things that you guys already touched on up here. You hit on a lot of things. And really because this is about communication, these are things, you know, you could take the internet out of this, and this could just be how do you interact around the people you're with day to day. You know, it kind of applies across the board. You should be kind, courteous, and respectful. I have a verse from Titus 3. Remind them to be submissive to rulers and authorities, to be obedient, to be ready for every good work, to speak evil of no one, to avoid quarreling, to be gentle, and to show perfect courtesy towards all people. It's talking about how we as Christians should act. You know, that applies, you know, here too. Don't start gossip, you know. Internet can be a great place to do that, especially if you think you're in a private group. Starting gossip. Don't instigate quarreling, you know. Don't be a part of, you see people piling on, this is not some place you need to be. Care about your tone and what you write. I do that certainly with emails, and need to do it with the internet too. I'll write something, and I may think it's fine, and it may sound great in my head, but then, you know, I'll say, hey, Lynette, how does this sound? She says, well, it sounds like you're angry. So I need to change it a little bit, like, okay, good point. So watch our tone about what we write. One of the things that I even always tell people at work, whenever we're interacting with people, always take the high road. You know, whether you're interacting with a colleague, someone, a customer, if they do something, always take the high road, right? When someone hurts you or says something because they're angry, you don't just respond back and like kind, right? Same thing on the internet. Always take the high road. Be courteous. Other thing to do sometimes is to listen before you send. Sometimes if you're getting ready to write something, maybe you should take a pause and not just respond to what's above there, is maybe you should scroll back through or maybe ask a question. Because sometimes, and it's the same thing with life, when we interact with people, we make an assumption about why they're saying what they're saying. And there's really more to it. And maybe we just need a little bit more background on what they're talking about, and then we can respond with something that's more useful. Verify before you post. Sometimes we like to, you know, forward posts or put something down there that maybe we saw somewhere else, but maybe it's actually not true, right? So sometimes we need to be careful. We want to be people that say the truth, right? So if you're not quite sure if that's actually accurate, maybe double check or don't post it. And then also it's an opportunity to demonstrate the fruits of the Spirit, just like how we would interact with anybody around us. You know, can they see our posts and know our social media presence? And they get this kind of sense from us that we're kind, gentle, you know, that we're self-controlled. Are they getting that from what we're putting out there? And there's a lot of words up there. I put be shrewd as a serpent. There's things to be careful of. This is one that you already touched on. Assume that everything you post and share online will be public. And I think the other thing is assume it'll be there forever. Right? Assume it's not going away. So always be careful about what you post. I'm more used to, you know, I grew up before social media. I'm more used to, like, I used email a lot. So even though you send an email point to point, be careful. Every email you assume somebody else is going to read it that you didn't intend to read it, right? You just assume that. So you always, when you write things, you think about you're being respectful and kind in them. Always approach controversy with caution. If there is some debate going on and it's not necessarily heated, it's something you want to be a part of, just be cautious about it, right? If you're having a debate or conversation, that's fine. Make sure you're knowledgeable. If you want to add something to it, certainly. That's a good thing if you're helping out, right? You're helping that conversation or giving someone some knowledge or maybe steering them. This goes with maybe sharing the gospel or steering someone in the right way. Another one is set limits, set time limits. I don't know if this is probably more for the teenagers, but certainly for us, because we talked about this last week. You can get pulled into using tons of time on the internet. Also, we need to set boundaries. Maybe there's groups that you join that you thought this was a good idea, but then you see all the posts in there. You're like, this isn't the place I need to be. Like, people are just kind of angry here, or they're just posting things I don't want to hear about that. So set boundaries on things. If there are places or groups you join, Say, I'm not going to be a part of that. Think before you sin. We talked a little bit about that. This is one I used to worry about this. I don't feel like I see this as much anymore, but maybe you can chime in if you monitor activity on your accounts, because sometimes people will tag you. I guess I just don't get tagged very much, but they can tag you for something and it shows up like on your thing and it's not something you want. So I think the comment was just like, if you have a social media account, check it every once in a while. If there's things showing up on there somehow from someone else, like sending you something. I don't know. Does that yes? Okay. There was one other, I was trying to read a bunch of articles on social media and how to use it and Christianity. There's one, again, Christians and how we should use it and caution and things like that. There was one, I liked how it just had the 5 points. They all started with the same letter. It said maintain moderation. We kind of already hit on that. Circumvent celebrity. I was talking about, sometimes, you care about how many friends you have, right? You have 200. Are you trying to be popular? Or trying to keep up on all the posts so everyone will look at you? That's not really something you want to be a part of, right? So don't make that your focus on social media. Target the truth, discern deception, because there's a lot of fake things out there. And then finally, dodge the detestable. So stay away from those things that are wrong, right? Finally, use private groups when needed. That was another one. I'll talk about that here in a minute. But I have a verse there from 2 Timothy. Have nothing to do with foolish, ignorant controversies. You know that they breed quarrels, and the Lord's servant must not be quarrelsome, but kind to everyone, able to teach, patiently enduring evil, correcting his opponents with gentleness. Okay? Something to think of both when you're talking to someone as well as in social media. So this is just a chance for me to talk about our Facebook page. Talk about using private groups when you need to. We have 2 Facebook pages, and when I did this, I was like, those look really similar. I should change the picture on one of them so you can tell them apart real easy when you go there. But we do have a private page, and we have a public page. So when you go to Facebook and you look at our church for our public page, there's certain things that I post there. Like I post things going on, community barbecue, vacation Bible school. When I go to our private page, you had to ask to join that, and I have to click yes. And it's usually people that are in this room, or it's somebody that's been here, So there's people from 30 years ago that were kids and teenagers that are still in that group, seeing what's going on here. And that one's a private group, and I'll post things a little bit more private in there. I might, show a picture of someone, or talk a little bit more about what's going on, or ask for prayers, or things like that. So I'll be a little bit more open in the private one. The public one is, very public. But still always keeping in mind, anything can end up anywhere, right? So. Yeah, that's right, yeah. Clark said we should only post the nasty gossip in the private one. So, but yeah, and I thought I should change the picture, because sometimes I have to look and make sure I'm posting the right one. If you find yourself in an argument, sometimes you can find yourself in an argument. I was going to talk to him about that, but we've kind of touched on some of those things. Shift to a private conversation. Same thing in life. If you don't want to be screaming at somebody across the room with a bunch of people paying attention, right? You wouldn't do that in real life, I hope. You shouldn't do it on the internet, back and forth. It's easy to go private, messaging, things like that. You can walk away from a conversation just like you can in real life. You can do it even easier virtually. If it's just, there's not much use in continuing it, you can kind of walk away. I know we're over time, so I was going to give Pam Campbell a shout out. I saw something that she posted yesterday, I think, so I was hoping Betty Lou or maybe Jim are online. But she posted something about encourage one another daily as long as it is called today, so that none of you may be hardened by sin's deceitfulness. She was quoting Hebrews chapter 3. So here's, Pam's using it in a positive way, talking about, hey, one text from the right person can change your mood, encouraging us like, hey, is there someone out there that might want a text from you? You could encourage them today. So how can we use social media? We can encourage each other. We can reach out to one another. We can promote the gospel through social media. And this was my plug for, if you're on Facebook, we have both Vacation Bible School and the Community Barbecue on Facebook, and there's a share button. So you can click on share and share it with your friends. Let them know there's a barbecue and Vacation Bible School going on. And then also something James is great about is sometimes you can check in. So if you come here and you go on your phone and you click on Facebook and it says what's on your mind, you can actually check in and it shows that, hey, James or Larry, I've done it a couple times, is at Rugby Avenue Church of Christ. So all your friends see where you are. So it might be an opportunity for a conversation in the coming week to say, hey, I saw you were at this place. I didn't know you went there. Tell me about that. So, it's just another way to use social media that might start a conversation or an opportunity to talk about God and your church and your church family. So I will finish with that. Thank you all for all the things you gave me. I believe Clark is teaching for the next couple weeks, but when I get a chance to talk to teens about this, I'll give you some feedback on how it went with them too. So thank you.